I was in agency work for a while, and then I shifted out into strategy, planning, and leadership. Strategy is the fuel for the engine. If you build an engine and you have no fuel, it's not going to work very well, right? Planning is where we're picking the parts and assembling the engine. A lot of people are great at picking the parts. I need to have a website, I need to have a podcast, I need to create content, and they're assembling the engine. Then leadership is the mechanic. Somebody has to maintain that engine and optimize it on an ongoing basis. Hiring an agency does not absolve you of managing and holding that company accountable. That's where the leadership portion comes in. Just because you hire somebody to do it does not absolve you of the leadership responsibilities that you have as an owner. Companies skip the marketing fundamentals and then they wonder why they're not winning.
Welcome to the CEO and the Salesman podcast. Today I'm joined by Tim Fitzpatrick. Tim is a man after my own heart. He's in the marketing space. So he specifically helps MSPs and B2B businesses figure out the nuances and I guess the mechanics of generating consistent lead flow for their organizations. Tim started, as a procedural thought processes, Tim started working with his dad back in 1996, he was telling me, and that was a wholesale distribution business. So I want to talk about that. How did you get from wholesale distribution all the way through to running a really successful marketing business? Welcome to the show, Tim.
Matt, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here.
Well, mate, let's jump straight in. So what did you say? If you finished college, you came out, started working in the wholesale distribution business. And then that business really grew very quickly, didn't it?
It did. So I was a math major. I'm always good with numbers, but I really had no idea what the heck I wanted to do. So I majored in math. I graduated. My dad had been a manufacturer's representative in the consumer electronics space for a long time. And shortly before I graduated, about a year before I graduated, he had started a wholesale distribution company related to that. And so when I got out, I knew he had no full-time employees in the company at that point. And I said, look, why don't I help you for the summer while I apply to jobs and figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life? And, fortunately for me, he was like, yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. So, Matt, I jumped in with both feet. And after 3 months, I didn't want to do anything else. I was hooked. I mean, I loved it. Because I was the first full-time employee.
What about it really grabbed you?
It was just everything. It was the people, the clients that we were working with. I was doing everything because it was just me and the company was small. So I was taking orders. I was shipping. I was receiving. I was paying bills. I was selling. All of it. I got visibility to every aspect of the business. I mean, literally, no joke. I would get a call from a client, take an order. I would go downstairs because we had, in an office downstairs is where we had all the inventory at that point. I would walk downstairs, get it ready to ship. And, UPS would come late in the day and pick up all the stuff. So I was a one-man band. My dad just he trusted me, let me do my thing. And so at the end of those 3 months, I said, I'd love to just keep doing this. And, he was happy to have me. And so that's where it kind of went from there. And, I eventually became a partner in the company, but we grew at 60% a year on average for 9 years. And then we sold it.
Wow.
So when we sold it, originally I was the first employee. When we sold it, we had 20, 25 employees, something like that. We had 2 locations. So it was amazing, and we can dig into it, but I learned so much along the way.
What a fantastic experience. So many people are out there and they sort of hyper-focus on their one thing and they sort of forget that the business is an ecosystem. And the fact that you took the order and then picked it and then shipped it, that's seeing the whole thing from start to finish. And so what part of that process, what did you love the most in that experience over those years?
I am one of those people that is a constant learner. If I don't learn something new each day, I don't feel good about that day. And when I was in that business, I was learning all the time. And, because I ended up a little bit of nepotism, right? I got involved because of my dad, but then I stayed because I loved it and I was doing good work. And because my dad had been in the business so long, I was exposed to a lot of the people that he knew from the business and the relationships that he had developed. And man, I was sitting in rooms with people that were 10, 20, 25 years older than me. And they were so smart. They knew what was going on. And I just listened. I didn't say a damn thing most of the time. I just listened. And I picked up so much good information from that experience. It was just, I can't even tell you how amazing of an experience it was. Not only that, but the other thing that was fun about it was I got to see a side of my dad that I didn't see growing up. I saw my dad as my dad.
Yeah, sure, of course.
In business, I got to see the professional side of him and see how well respected he was and how he operated from a place of integrity and always wanting to do what was best for his customers, for the vendors that he was repping, all of that. So I got to see a different side of him that I didn't see otherwise.
Yeah, it's great to see. I remember my father. He was in sales for a very large organization. He would take me on holidays and summer holidays around to do. He would actually write the sales script as he would drive around in commercial and residential real estate. So he would write the sales script, and so he would pitch me. And at the end of the day, he would land me at this piece of property he was trying to work out how to sell and work out how to position for the troops, the salespeople. And he would say, okay, so from what you've seen today, you've seen this, this, and this, and you've seen that, that, and that. What would you pay for this? And I go, oh, well, it's going to be X dollars. And he goes, well, good news is today you can buy it for Y. And that sort of that seeing that and seeing him interact with his sales team, because this was a publicly listed company. So this was he had probably 100 or so people working with him. And in that, it was real. This is the 80s, right? So this wasn't fancy. He didn't wear a suit. So even though he was director of sales for that organization, when he was out in the field, he was out in the field. He was wearing you guys in America, he would call it a cowboy hat, but he was wearing a hat, regular outfit, and just be talking to people because his job was to buy huge tracts of land and then chop it up.
Okay.
And so he was dealing with farmers, he was dealing with regular people all day, and our family come from a family of farmers as well. So, just interesting to be part of those conversations and seeing him do that. So I absolutely recognize that's a huge piece of value there. Seeing your dad do what they do professionally, but not just being the joker or the fun person at home, right, or the disciplinarian at home, or the person that hosts the party at home. It's just another dimension to this individual who has a big impact. So what was his leadership style? I want to talk about. So part of this podcast, people tune in to talk about leadership because a lot of them are owners of organizations, and the idea is to get better. The idea is to become more successful. So what did you see with him?
For me, it was more of a mentorship than it was, leadership specifically, because I was in the wholesale distribution company full time. He was in his rep company pretty much full time. We talked all the time, so he knew what was happening with distribution, and he certainly was involved from a strategic standpoint and the direction of the company as a whole. But day to day, it was me. And he was there when I ran into challenges to just bounce ideas off of, am I going down the right path? What am I missing here that I'm not seeing? And so for me, that's the type of relationship it was for me. I never felt like, oh, my dad's my boss. I never felt that way at all, which is really very interesting. And, the other thing that I think really attracted me to that experience was I never felt like I was working. I loved it so much. Okay. For most people, it's like I'm going to work. I was just going to have fun. And it was like that every damn day. So
yeah, that's
it
cool.
was,
I like that.
It was an amazing experience. And it's when you're in an organization that's growing that fast, it's really hard to see everything that is coming down the pipe because it's coming so fast. So no matter how much you plan, there are always going to be things that you didn't see, right? That you couldn't plan for.
Right. Of course.
So
Yeah.
it was a lot
So,
of
so
on the
I
job
want to sort of
learning.
fast. Got it. So I want to sort of fast forward to today and what, in doing research and reading some of the stuff that you've written there, you talk a lot about how marketing fails without leadership. And I want to really talk about that because a lot of the people I deal with, because we're reasonably kindred spirits here. We're both in the marketing and sales world.
Yes.
So the thing that I see is they want to people often want to chuck it over the fence. That's a very Australian way to say it, but
Okay.
they want to offload that. They want to outsource it. They don't want to
Yes.
deal with it. I'm a really great technician, or I'm a really good, whatever, fill in the blank of what you're good at, and they
Yeah.
want somebody else to deal with it. They don't want to think about it anymore. It's sort of it's a they sort of do it out of a begrudgingly. Oh well, I've got to do marketing now, and so they sort of try to get rid of it. So
Yep.
when did you first start to see that leadership and marketing really come together?
So, God, Matt, that's a really good question. I would say probably, within the last 5 to 6 years. When I first got involved in marketing, I was not doing anything close to what I'm doing now. I was originally doing mobile app development, and
Okay.
when I shifted out of that, I was in agency work for a while, and then I shifted out into, look, I'm good at strategy, planning, and leadership. And so that's when I shifted into that realm within marketing. And that's really when I started thinking about how do all these things align, right? And the way I think about it is strategy is the fuel for the engine. If you build an engine and you have no fuel, it's not it's not going to work very well, right? So we got to have
Exactly.
strategy. Planning is where we're picking the parts and assembling the engine, right? A lot of people, like you said, a lot of people are great at picking the parts. I need to have a website. I need to have a podcast. I need to create content, right? And they're assembling the engine. Then leadership is the mechanic. Somebody has to maintain that engine and optimize it on an ongoing basis. If that is not happening, look, there's some great engines out there that'll run a long time with no maintenance, but they're not running as efficiently as they should, and eventually they're going to crap out. So you have to have a mechanic. So that's how I
Got
think
it.
about those three coming together, being those core components of building a really strong marketing engine. Fuel, the
Perfect.
engine itself, the parts that we're going to use, and then the mechanic. So that's where leadership comes in.
Very good. So what do you think most business owners misunderstand about why their marketing is not working?
There's a few things I think. One goes to what you just alluded to. I just want to get marketing off my plate, right? And so they hire an agency or they bring in an internal marketing person and just go do the marketing for me. But hiring an agency does not absolve you of managing and holding that company accountable. That's where the leadership
Yeah.
portion comes in. And if you just because you hire somebody to do it does not absolve you of the leadership responsibilities that you have as an owner. And if you do not understand marketing, it is very difficult to lead it, right? And oversee those efforts. So, in my opinion, you need to bring somebody in or have a consultant, an advisor who can help guide you so that you are leading from a place of strength and knowledge and not just freaking winging it.
Oh
And
man, I
that,
love
right?
that. So
That's a
that,
huge,
that
huge gap. Okay.
it's a huge issue. So, whenever I had a reasonably successful software company back in the day, and so what I would do is I would have conversations with the team, and I would stand up often. Today, if one was so inclined, they would call it a town hall, but I would just call it a meeting. We don't have, we need to have cooler
Yeah.
names. Silicon Valley introduces a whole bunch of cool names for stuff that actually
Right.
been happening for 1,000 years, right? We're going to have a meeting, but now we're going to call it a town hall. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I would call together these meetings, and just at some stage of the conversation, people would be talking about what development or service or support or finance or administration or some bit, and I'd have to remind everybody, hey, ladies and gentlemen, we are a sales and marketing organization. We have software. We're not a software company. We have software. We sell software and we develop software. But we're not a software company. We're a sales and marketing organization, because without sales and marketing, we got nothing. And so, of course, that upset everybody except sales and marketing. And being a sales and marketing guy, that sort of stroked my ego really nicely.
Right.
But I like what you're saying there is that where is the DNA in the organization? If it's about being the smartest people in the room, if it's about being hyper technical, then you've got to make sure that you've elevated somebody in the organization to own that sales and marketing piece, so that you can make sure that there's some real leadership, to pushing through there.
Yeah.
So to continue that conversation about discipline, because I like what you said earlier about that, is why do you think capable operators lose that discipline when it comes to marketing?
Short-term thinking, right? As humans, we are wired for short-term gratification. And so we're always looking for, well, did marketing generate leads today? No, well, then it's not working, right? And so they jump from one thing to the next without giving it the opportunity to gain traction. And look, part of that is our DNA as humans. Part of it is the marketing industry fails people, right? It sets improper expectations. Marketing is a long-term, consistent effort. It is not a short-term sprint. There are wins that we can get quickly, but a lot of these things take time to build momentum. And so I see people give up on things far too quickly. And because of that, they just, they're throwing stuff up against a wall, hoping something sticks, random acts of marketing, whatever you want to call it. That's the problem. We have to think long term. And going back to how you think about it, I think about it the same way. Without sales and marketing, you could have the best product or service in the world. Who cares? Because you're going to go out of business.
Yep.
So you have to have that on the front end. If you don't, nothing else down the line matters. So we've got to figure out how we're going to build a consistent sales and marketing engine. Then we can worry about the rest of it down the line. But it's a long-term thing. You can't think of it in weekly, monthly, even quarterly sprints. You got to do it, and you got to do it over and over and over again.
So what are you seeing as your general and maybe even specific advice that you give to clients the beginning of 2026? What are some of those decisions they should be making now to think, well, this is the path, or this is the strategy, this is the activity that we need to be doing. Now, of course, I'm picking out a tactic, whereas over time, it fits into the larger overall strategy. But what's the thing that you're asking your clients to do more of, and also then I'm going to ask you what they want them to do less of.
So the first thing, and this is where I start with everybody, is strategy, those fundamentals. Do you have the fundamentals in place? Because if you don't, everything else down the line is going to be out of alignment. And it's either not going to work, or it's not going to work very effectively. So we have to do that, right? And so many people skip it. I've been watching a lot of sports here in the US. Football season's coming to a close, right? And what I find is so interesting is before the game, in the middle of the game, when you see the announcers asking the coaches or the players, hey, what do you need to do to win this game? So often, Matt, what are they talking about? The fundamentals. Man, we got to block well, right? We have to tackle. They're going, we just got to do the fundamentals well. If we do that, we're going to win. And so many companies skip the marketing fundamentals, and then they wonder why they're not winning. So we have to start there.
So true. It's not the trick play. They're never on the sideline saying, "Oh, we've got a book full of trick plays." It's because it's like a high sugar, jolt, and you might have a bunch of trick plays, but they sit inside a whole range. Because because really, you're absolutely right. It does sit inside that overall thing. So when you say fundamentals, let's get down to it. What do you mean by fundamentals in marketing when you're talking to an MSP? They've got, let's say they've identified their customers. We don't want to deal with businesses over 100 seats. We charge a certain amount of money. It sort of looks like almost everybody else out there who has targets these types of people, who charges this amount of money, who provides a help desk and does these types of things. Not disparaging MSPs, they're absolutely vital. But it's what is your so just take me through that, please.
Yeah. So you touched on the first one. Who are your ideal clients? Right? A lot of companies think they understand who their ideal clients are, and then when you ask them, it's like almost anybody with a heartbeat, which is not, that's not an ideal client. So we need to narrow down who is the ideal client and understand them. Once we do that, then we can create messaging to attract and engage those people. Those are the first two fundamentals, but everything from a marketing standpoint starts with your ideal client. If you do not have that nailed down, everything else down the line is off. So ideal clients, then what's our message? Then from there, what's the actual offer? What are we offering them that they want to buy, that's solving a problem that they have, that they want to spend money to solve? To me, those are the basic fundamentals. Then we can start to jump in. Okay, how are we going to market and position this business? What tactics make the most sense? But those are the first three fundamentals I look at.
And being in marketing, and from what you said, I don't want people to just hear what Tim has just said and go, yeah, I know we sell to logistics companies out of Maine. And, because it's not just that. It's not just demographics, it's psychographics. You've hit on a few things there. But there's a lot of nuance inside what you've just said there, Tim. So people listening to that, I don't want you to just walk past and go, yeah, I know who, what, when, where, why, or I know that we sell these things to those people. So positioning is super important, but actually really deeply understanding that. So Tim, okay, so let's say people understand what do you think is let's say you've got a business that wants to grow. What would be your advice to an owner or a business leader out there in 2026 to grow their business?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, Matt. Because
of course it is.
I'm of the opinion there's no one size fits all marketing plan. Everybody's in a different position. It depends on where you currently are, where you want to get to, and the resources that you have. But at a basic level, one, I think you got to have a good website, right? You have to have a website that has strong messaging, that has a clear call to action, a clear path that you're leading people down. Because no matter what tactics you're leveraging, people are going, that's one of the first places they go to check you out. Right. And of course, if that's not good, I don't think they're moving past that. So we've got to have that website. Doesn't mean you have to have a crazy website with a gazillion different pages. It could be a good single page site, but you have to have something there that has a good message, good call to action, and creates a good initial impression. From there, you have to have at least one tactic that you're leveraging that is going to get you in front of your ideal clients on a consistent basis. At least one, but most businesses don't even have one. So
true. Well, we get heaps of referrals. So why would I, this all seems a bit too hard. Why would I create a lead magnet? Why would I do this? Why would I, appear on podcasts? It's all a bit too hard. But really, at the end of the day, I don't need to do it because people just buy from me because I'm amazing.
Yeah. What most people realize, okay, if you are growth focused, at some point, you will reach a ceiling with referrals. When you reach that ceiling for referrals, you will be in a position where you wish you would have started focusing on marketing a lot sooner than you did. You don't need to be everywhere, but you need to pick a channel that you're going to go deep in, right? I would much rather see people go, narrow and deep rather than wide and shallow, right? Because what most people do is they go, oh, well, I need to be everywhere. So they pick 5 tactics and they do them all marginally and none of them work. So test some different channels to figure out what works well for you and then go deep in that and maximize that opportunity first before you start to expand into other marketing channels, right? But whatever that channel is, on the back end of it, you're going to have a way to nurture the leads that come through that. So to me, you got to have email marketing as a base in addition to your website. Okay. And then you have to have some process for, those higher quality leads. How are you going to stay in front of them on a more manual, custom basis based on their specific situation? So you got to have that tactic that's generating leads, and you got to have a way to nurture those leads until they're ready to buy.
Yeah, cool. I like that. So if you talk about your marketing engine, and so do I, so we're almost kindred spirits here. And so what do you think is when you talk about marketing engine, what's the part that leaders seem to underestimate when it comes to building that marketing engine? They've come to you and said, right, it's time. I know my ICP, my ideal customer profile. What's the bit that they walk past too often that you think they need to spend more time thinking about?
That's a great question. I think they need to think about the long term and what things they're going to need in place to maintain that engine on a long-term basis. Who are the key players going to be in that engine? But on the flip side too, and you touched on this before, is building a marketing engine is not just about adding things. It's also about removing things. Oftentimes I'm coming in with clients that are doing all kinds of stuff, but none of it's working. And
Right.
so we need to hone in on what is working or what has the highest likelihood of working and remove the stuff that's not. Because the stuff that we're focusing on that's not working is taking away from our ability to actually implement and execute on what is working. So
can you give me an example of something that you've gone into a business over the course of the last couple of years and said, you know what, let's stop doing this. And I'm not saying any of these tactics are going to be bad, but for that client, there was not something you wanted to carry on because there's just the juice wasn't worth the squeeze at the time. So, what was some of the things that you've shut down and something that you focused on for a particular client? You can talk in general terms if you like, or
no worries.
You don't have no names, no court martials.
No. So I'll give you a perfect example. This comes up a lot. Owner is going to local chamber. They're a member of the local chamber of commerce, and they're going to chamber events. Stop. Like, it's not targeted enough. You're going there hoping that some random small business there is going to need your IT services or whatever you're selling. It's not targeted enough. And so they're going to this over and over and over again, hoping that somebody there might just pop up. That's a perfect example. Stop doing that. It is a waste of time. Right? Come back. Now, what's not a waste of time, right? What's not a waste of time is I've decided that my ICP are attorneys, and I know the exact problem I'm solving for them. I know the psychographics of those attorneys because I also know that not every attorney is going to be a good fit. It's attorneys that think this way, that value these specific things, that have this problem, that are great fits for me. Rather than going to the chamber event, I'm going to the local bar association meeting every month. That's targeted networking, because who's going to be there? Your ICP and potential referral partners that are serving your exact same ICP. That makes a lot more sense.
Very cool.
Right?
Do you have any particular frameworks that you have people think about sort of when they go to those networking meetings to maximize the value out of those networking meetings? Because I know I have real, I walk into a networking meeting and if you look around, like that Simpsons episode where sort of Homer is, looking through the eye of the Terminator, and you go,
Yeah.
"Is this person my target? Is this person my target?" And this reason I stopped going to a lot of those things is because, I sell. I don't sell to the butcher and the baker and the candlestick maker. I don't sell
Right.
that to that person. So that's why I don't do a lot of networking, in general networking.
Yeah.
So do you have any particular tactics or strategies that you use or encourage people to use when going to those meetings?
Nothing specific other than you just have to go and start having conversations, right? That's how relationships develop. If we go in there with a specific objective, I've got to sell somebody, it comes across that way, right? How many of us have been to a chamber event and you start talking to somebody and they immediately start pitching you? And it's like, dude, can't we just get to know each other here? I read this recently and it really resonated with me. It's like relationships don't need intensity. They need presence and they need time. So when we go to a networking event and we immediately start pitching the first person that we talk to, that's intensity. And it comes across that way. And people are like, Jesus, I gotta go talk to somebody else. Just be human and have a regular conversation. Ask. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen American Pie? The movie American Pie? There's a line in there where, they're trying to figure out, gosh, how do we pick up on women? And one of the guys is like, just ask them questions and listen to what they have to say and shit. It's like the same thing with anything. Just ask questions and listen to people. That will help guide the conversation. When they share something with you, it's like, oh my God, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. Just remember the conversation can flow naturally. And as you pick up on that, that's going to help dictate then, is this a conversation that's worth continuing? If it is, then just suggest another conversation and see where it goes from there. But think of relationships as needing presence and time.
That's so true because and the online version of that is LinkedIn, and the online version of that pitch is the pitch slap. You connect with somebody on LinkedIn, and 2 minutes later, here's 3 scrolling pages of their best rates in to be PHP developers, and it's crazy. Bob's Discount Software House and Rug Emporium. It's like it's all these are all the things we can do for you. Do you want some?
Yeah.
And I sent a message to a guy the other day. And he says, "Oh, do you need financial services?" And funny enough, I did, but I thought, well, that's a weird, it's a weird ask with no context. So I went looking and I Googled financial services in my area because I've just moved to the US, as people can probably tell from my accent or lack of accent. And so I was sort of searching around. I found somebody, but what I did is I Googled and I found somebody who's putting content out there about their financial services. They're talking about my specific problem, bringing your money over from Australia and having investments in both countries. And they're talking about these things. Well, as I'm typing my email into their funnel, because I know it's a funnel. I'm going to download their guide, which of course puts me in
you're a
funnel.
marketer.
Get their email, probably get a phone call. I'm a marketer. I know what's going on. And nobody out there is so blind to the fact that they are. And of course, they're going to get a call. You're going to get some sort of DM. You're going to get some sort of message. As I'm putting that in, I went, oh, that guy on LinkedIn who pitch slapped me, who gave me a bit of a spiel and then said, do you want financial services? Well, this guy's actually done the opposite of marketing. He's actually made me problem aware and driven me to go find somebody else to buy from. And so that is how repellent, and I'm not being this guy's repellent, that's a very strong word, but how repellent an early pitch is compared with somebody who actually wants to build some type of relationship. And so I really think that's super important. One of the things that I use in when I was going to network meetings is I would meet the person running the thing. And so if anybody who sells B2C or sells to general public and they get a lot of value out of networking, they might want to use this or take a version of this. What I would do is have a conversation with the person running it and explain what I did, because they have to be interested in you because you've paid to be there. So they're sort of obligated to talk to you, even if you don't know anybody. It's your first time. So talking about, and then I say, so now I don't want to take up all of your time, Bob or Mary. Who here do you think I should meet? And then they go, oh, got to go talk to Tim. He's an amazing marketing guy. Would you mind introducing me? And then they walk me over to Tim. Now I'm being introduced, like it's this little mini referral, right? Oh, Matthew's brand new here. He does this, and this. He's a top bloke, blah, 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 the top guy. Here's Tim. And then once I've spoken to Tim, I speak to Tim and I said, Tim, I really enjoyed our conversation. We'll catch up next week. So Tim, you've been here longer than I have. Who should I meet? And then Tim, would you mind introducing me? I don't know them, and it's a bit awkward and weird if you just walk up to this group. So Tim, because he's been there at this networking thing, walks me over to the next person. And I've used that so effectively because I'm not, even though I'm a salesperson, I'm not a natural sort of kick a door in and announce myself that I'm here. I am, and I have to sort of work myself up to be in that state to go in. So I found that to be super successful when I was selling for those types of organizations or for my own business. Is swing from vine to vine, and eventually you meet all the people in the business in the room, just because you've asked to be introduced to the next person.
Yeah.
So I've used that a lot.
Related to that too, and it could be with networking, or it could be like a peer group that you join, any group like that, approaching the person that leads it, asking the question you did. A mentor of mine said the other thing that you can do when you join a group like that is just ask the leader, hey, I thank you, I'm super excited about being part of this group. What if you had to say, what are the top 3 things that I should do to leverage this opportunity? What would they be?
Love it.
And they'll tell you, right?
They'll have answers. These guys
yes.
are not running these networking meetings for, because they need more friends. Well, they might be, but it'd be up for a while. It'd be weird. They're running it to run a business, and often they'll have little guides. They'll have ideas. They'll have the next level up. Smart ones. I was working with a guy. I knew a guy on the Gold Coast in Australia named Ed, and his wife Rebecca. Super smart, super great networkers. And they had a whole program, and of course they monetized that whole thing as well. So they were great networkers, but also they knew how to teach that networking piece as well. So it's super, it's super good to be able to get introduced. So, and also use that on LinkedIn as well. People who are a bit more keyboardy than face to face. Just today I'm being introduced to a person at Inc.com through a person that knows a person. And it's always those next level introductions that do give us the highest value. Yeah. So going back to your expertise. So we're really clear on the marketing. We're really clear on binning the networking that's not working, doubling down on getting really clear. What else are you recommending? What do you find yourself recommending to clients in the last 6 months?
Yeah, this really hasn't changed all that much. I think in B2B,
people have been selling things for 10,000 years, and so marketing. I was reading. Sorry, I know I've cut you off again.
It's okay.
I was reading a letter written by Gary Hablett from the 80s, and I read their letter, and I'm like, this is great marketing copy. So
yes.
I'm not saying nothing's changed. Maybe the delivery mechanism has changed.
Yes,
but clear and good thinking doesn't change. So if you're reading an old book, anybody out there, or thinking about sales and marketing, feel free to read Zig Ziglar. Feel free to go to 90s Anthony Robbins, to work on yourself. It's still true. It's just their delivery mechanism might have been updated. So sorry, Tim, I don't want to. I mean, to cut you off.
So it's what I see in B2B. Speaking works extremely well. Now, when I say speaking, I use that term fairly loosely. That could be in person. It could be online, with webinars or workshops. It could be podcasting, guest podcasting, all of that I view as speaking. Speaking in B2B works extremely well. So, and especially
Yeah.
when it's very targeted speaking. I'm targeting attorneys. I'm speaking at the local bar association, or I found a software vendor in the legal space that sells to attorneys, and I'm doing a workshop for their audience specifically. Speaking works really, really well. Marketing is so easy to overcomplicate. You and I both know this, Matthew.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Like, you don't need to do a gazillion different things. Find what works and repeat it over and over again
Yeah, I
until
love
it
that.
stops working.
Yeah, until it stops working, and then maybe keep going anyway, because it's probably, So that speaking piece. So I'm big on the personal brand at the moment. I know that sounds like it's not a new thing. We know who, we've known individuals who can draw a brand around them for many, many years. Richard Branson obviously draws a brand around himself, or draws, marketing to him and draws businesses to him. Same as pick a name. These people are more interesting than their companies. And
Yeah.
so that personal brand piece and the speaking is super powerful way of doing it. And so how would a person go? So you would be talking about getting them to go to industry associations and offering ideas and insights, that sort of type of speaking?
Yep. That type of speak. It's educational, right? You're adding
Yep.
value. While you're doing it, you're helping educate the audience, but you're also helping establish your credibility and what you know and what you do.
Got it.
And from
Very
that,
cool.
not everybody there is going to be ready to buy at that point, but you can start to capture email addresses, names, depending on what you choose to offer. Sometimes you're going to have people that are actually going to like raise their hand coming right out of it. You just don't know.
Just
but
don't even know.
yeah,
So no marketing conversation would be complete in 2026 without talking about the rise of AI and what you see as the role of AI in marketing. So where do you see AI, and do you think that marketers like you and me are on the in the scrap heap in a couple of years?
I don't think we're in the scrap heap. Look, if we're from a strategic standpoint, if we get to a place where AI can do all the strategic thinking, we're all screwed. Like, I mean, so why worry about it? But right now, AI is good at thinking through processes, right? It's good at identifying patterns. I'm not going to say that it's great strategically. I think you can bounce ideas off of it from a strategic standpoint and use it as a good thought partner, but it's not there. So what I see from a marketing standpoint, and look, just one person's opinion, so take it for whatever it's worth. And in 6 months from now, this is probably going to be different. But I am of the opinion there are a ton of marketing tools out there, not just in AI tools. There's a ton of AI marketing tools. There's a ton of other AI tools. I think less than half of these tools are going to be here in 3 to 5 years. So I think you need to be really careful about what
3 to 5 is very generous.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So I think you need to be very careful about the tools you choose to hitch your wagons to. Because of that, I am leaning heavily towards the tools that, are as established as they can be in an industry that's 3 years old. I use ChatGPT. I use Claude. I'm starting to look at some of the stuff within Gemini. I use Perplexity. I would rather know those tools really, really well and leverage them as much as possible than spread myself out across a bunch of different tools. Because the other thing is some of these tools are really expensive. And it's like, they're charging a lot now. There's no way that they're going to be able to maintain that type of pricing forever. They're just not.
Did you see that? Did you see that ChatGPT came out and said they're going to be offering
ad-based
advertising?
version? Yeah. Yeah. No, look,
And
to
so,
you
Tim,
and
as a
I, that's,
marketer,
yeah, it's no surprise.
well, not only that, but I remember early days Google. I remember when we were putting ads on Google for my software company, and we got the cost of acquisition down to less than 6% of product costs.
Yeah.
Cost of advertise. So then we generated a ton of leads, and then qualified lead, and then sale. The cost of sale was about 8%, and then also Facebook. Goodness me, Facebook was cents on the dollar to get a high quality lead. Now I'm running campaigns, and people are getting excited about taking lead costs down from $16 to $6, and I'm a champion, and people are high fiving me, getting a $6 a lead. And this, but back in the day, it was 6 cents a lead. So I think that one of the hot things that's going to, I just hope that there's going to be the same level of supply and demand, because it's supply and demand, right? Demand wasn't that high, and supply was very high. So of course the prices was low. Now everybody's trying to get on Google and Facebook, and of course supply and demand levels out to find the market. So it's interesting to see how they manage that UI, because it's a really clean UI at the moment, right? And remember back in the day in Google, it used to be, these are the sponsored ones. Or actually, it was on the right-hand side. Remember, it was on the right. It was on the right-hand side of the answers. So you had your actual answers here, and you had a bunch of advertising down the side, and that made sense. And now it's sort of all a bit mixed in, because we're an advertising company. We have search. We're no longer a search company. We're an advertising company. We have search, where there used to be a search company with advertising.
It's going to be interesting to see how they roll that out.
Interesting is the correct word. Yeah, because they're doing 20 billion at the moment, but they're spending 17 just on that, and they got to grow, because if they don't grow, Google's going to eat their lunch. Google's going to eat their lunch all day.
That's why I think Gemini is coming on really strong. And with, like, I'm using a lot of custom GPTs within ChatGPT, but Gemini now has gems, which basically are the exact same thing. So but from a marketing standpoint, I think with custom GPTs, you can do a lot of very, very effective marketing execution work with one person, somebody like you or I that's very strategic and can help fill the strategic leadership gaps. You have an execution person leveraging AI with custom GPTs. You can do a lot of very effective marketing with a small team.
Yeah, I think the rise of the one man or two man, and I say person, marketing department, where it used to be 4s or 5s.
Yeah,
and it's not that those people are going to be, a whole bunch of marketers on the street panhandling. They're going to have to evolve, because nobody's really lamenting the fact that there's no longer hundreds of people tilling the field because tractors came along and got invented. No, that's not. That's the reality of 2026. Nobody's like, geez, I wish I was out there tilling the field. So what's that job going to look like in the future? We don't know. So thinking about the future, actually, I want to sort of turn that around as we close out this conversation. What's a bit of marketing advice you gave 10 years ago? If you think back to 10 years ago, it's cast your mind back, it's 2015. What's the marketing advice that you think was actually wrong, or you'd want to walk back today? Is there any?
Oh, man. Matthew, I haven't really changed what I've said that much about marketing, because everything I do is focused on the fundamentals, and the fundamentals don't change. Right? I've never been, look, there's nothing sexy or cool about what I focus on within marketing. I'm not focused on the latest, greatest tactic. And so I'd like to think that I've been pretty consistent. Keep it simple. You don't need to be everywhere. You just need to find those few tactics that you're going to go deep on and leverage those. You can build a very successful business on less than 2-3 marketing tactics.
I love that.
So, I mean, it's just,
cool.
I wish I had a revolutionary answer for you there. I just don't, because I'm not on the cutting edge of it.
Yeah, got it. No, well, like, I'm very similar. The probably only advice I'd give myself from 10 years ago is buy more Bitcoin. That'd be
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. Hindsight's 2020, right?
Yeah, that's right. I had a conversation. I remember having a conversation with my wife and saying, "Oh, we should buy a couple of grand worth of this." And she challenged me on that. She's an accountant and finance and operations person, so she always ran my businesses or our businesses. We started
Yeah.
our first company together when I was 22, she was 21, right? So, other than sales and marketing, she ran everything else. And I really just didn't have a good argument why my gut said it was a good idea, but I had no good argument. I hadn't thought it through. I was sort of getting on the hype train. And I went, yeah, you're probably right. And
How
I don't
long
let
ago
it
was
forget
that?
it. 10 years,
Okay.
2015, 2014,
Oh my
13,
God.
15. I remember that conversation.
So
Yeah.
how much was it at that point? Do you even remember? It was less than $10 at
80
that
bucks,
point.
80 bucks.
Yeah. Uh,
That's right. Not,
yeah.
it's
Again,
now 100 and
hindsight's
something
2020.
thousand.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's right. That's it. Probably look back to the weekend. Probably shouldn't have had that, third beer or third bit of pizza either. So, the past is full of regrets.
That's right. Uh,
Hey, look, Tim, I've really enjoyed our conversation. I love talking to another marketing guy. So if there's anything that you want to leave the audience with, a way of thinking, a framework, an idea, what would you like to share with the nice people that are listening?
one of the things that a mentor of mine shared with me that has always stuck with me as an entrepreneur is just focus on the next measurable step. It's so easy for us to get overwhelmed because there's never what we all have monkey brain, right? There's always these ideas spinning around. And when we're thinking about all these things that we have to do, it's so easy to just get lost and overwhelmed. But when we focus on the next measurable step we need to take, what's the next little step that's going to get us one step closer to where we want to go? What was overwhelming becomes much more manageable. Because once I take that first step, then I just identify the next one after that and the next one after that. So focus on the next measurable step.
Love that. Well, for everybody out there, the next measurable step you can do is find Tim on LinkedIn or on his website, Rialto Marketing. You could also subscribe to the podcast so you can get more insights from amazing people like Tim. Thank you very much for coming today, Tim. Really appreciate your time. Bye for now.
Appreciate you.